So I'm going to be summarizing the document, Not Just a Game. It starts out, the guy Dave Zirin points out that sports and politics have always subtly mixed. A lot of sports reflect a society's culture. If you look at American football, there's themes such as manning up, there's elements of militarization. So you think about a quarterback as being like the general, and then he's firing bombs to his receivers, and they're finding the weaknesses in the defense. There's always some sort of messaging that come along with sports because it's on a broadcast. This attitude, specifically when talking about American football, also leads to a lot of injuries, and this is why there's so much head injuries in football, particularly. It said football athletes on average are dying up to 20 years earlier. It's because of all the head trauma. The documentary talked about a guy named Pat Tillman who left the NFL after 9/11. And when he did, he was definitely shown as a hero. He was shown as somebody who like went to war and died for his country, and he was celebrated. And then Pat Tillman was later brought up many times as an example as of an American hero, but it was discovered that he was killed by friendly fire and he didn't die in a heroic manner. And therefore, the story that was put out about Pat Tillman was there in order to kind of promote militarization. The documentary also talks about how when physical education was implemented in schools, there was pushback against women being involved in physical education. Even when women started riding bicycles, there was also pushback against this. And then also track and field activities, there was pushback against women even competing in the most basic sport of track and field. And the fear was, like I said, that they didn't want women to become masculinized, quote unquote. It was believed, there was opinions going around that sports were masculinizing and that they didn't want women participating in that. It also talked about how in the 1960s, the civil rights movement aimed to change this. Billie Jean King was a prominent tennis player who spread the message of the civil rights movement at this time. However, since 1989, coverage of women's sports has gone down, and women's sports has never been covered as much as men's sports. Another topic that was covered in the documentary is homophobia being very prominent in sports, especially manly, masculine sports such as football, baseball, and basketball. There has also been a prominent theme of racism in sports. There's been a belief out there that athletes of color are not as good as white athletes. And then when heavyweight boxer Jack Johnson became the first African American champion, then also a baseball player named Jackie Robinson became an absolutely amazing baseball player. And this completely shattered the notion of athletes of color being inferior. Also, it was talked about how commercialism has caused athletes to stray away from politics in order to not offend people and focus on the money. Muhammad Ali is someone who did not go down this route. Muhammad Ali was someone who stood up for what he believed. He spoke out against racism and he spoke out against the Vietnam War. Now, Michael Jordan is someone who's on the other side of that spectrum. Michael Jordan, with his Nike product, wanted to promote his product over talk about politics. So those are two sides of the same spectrum. Then the documentary concludes by saying that sport is more than play, and it has always had something to say. It hasn't always just been about pure entertainment. The documentary has a very good message, and it's good to acknowledge that politics are a part of sport as opposed to pretending they're not.